Welcome back. Defense Department leaders have been developing and testing edge computing environments for years. But events like the series of hurricanes that are drawing cross-government response are calling attention to civilian agency edge computing efforts too. Dan O'Donohue is Senior Vice President of Strategic Programs at OWL Cyber Defense. Dan, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. What are you seeing as agencies are thinking about not just computing at the edge, but data exchange at the edge among organizations that may or may not have the same data standards, trying to get the information in front of the people that need it when they need it most?
I think there's a very real understanding that DoD has taken the lead, certainly funded under a pressing threat of China, which has stimulated almost a revolution in terms of how we manage data. The civilian components of our national defense are most essential that they keep pace, and I think they understand that. A component of how we manage data is moving data across different levels of classification, top secret to unclassified and the like. There's a technology that allows us to do that that actually fundamentally has to be shared with the civilian agencies. Hurricanes are one thing, a considered threat against the United States from a peer. No secret that they have infested within our infrastructure. They're going to go after the will of the American people. And data, which has normally been in the secret preserve of the Department of Defense, has to be shared with civilian agencies, FEMA in particular.
How much of getting after that problem is a technology problem, a tools problem, and how much of it is cultural as far as the way that organizations, like you mentioned classification,
right,
how organizations classify material and how they allow materials of different classifications to be moved around?
I'll start with that one. There is a culture of overclassification, and some of the areas that are what we see as war winners or enablers, space and cyber, are probably the prime culprits. You've got to find a means to share it, or that information isn't as useful as it needs to be done. The theory of victory in the Department of Defense is that we can share data across kill webs, not sequential kill chains, and with a data mesh that's decentralized that allows our critical advantage, our people, our young leaders, to adapt in a very imaginative way to the threat. Again, that's something that has to be shared. There's a human factor aspect of it. We've talked about the soldier's load carrying weight into combat. Now we talk about the weight of data, what's necessary at the front end, what data allows them, not too much. AI in particular uses a tool to sort through what can be a very chaotic, fear-driven, one of exhaustion. Conditions that are even hard to imagine in a studio like this have to be realized. A lot of our push towards security are done at the enterprise level. The conditions here are entirely different of a commander, whether it's in FEMA or a commander in combat, fear, stress, casualties and the like.
You touched on something there that was where I wanted to go next, and that is what are the security ramifications of edge computing, edge data exchange, and edge communications?
Right. The problem we have now, we have the networks, but you got to pass the data. So data is everything. You have to have data mobility. The biggest problem are data silos, data that's trapped in classifications. So if you have a true web that you want to enable every aspect of the joint force or the civilian force as well, you've got to be able to break that down. There are technical solutions that are being worked, cross-domain solutions that allow data to be shared without the risk of a back attack from malware or a spillage in terms of classified. I think that's the leading edge of this ability to share to tactical and strategic advantage.
Who has to do what to get after this problem to the degree that you think that it needs to be changed?
So what's really interesting about this problem is the warfighters are all about it. The rich and vigorous experimentation, whether it's Indo-PACOM, we participated in Purple Guardian, and I think that's the tell. There's a demand at that level, and concomitant with that demand, where they try to grab it and look at solutions, is the idea that our acquisition process follows, and there's a technical astuteness. And you're starting to see that integration of acquisition, technical facility, operational effect within these different experimentation cells, but very much reflects how we're going to fight, a bottom-up. Now, there's an issue of standards. Intentionally, it's decentralized, CDAO and the like. And so there is a tension here that's got to be resolved, but it's a creative one, and one that, frankly, will replicate in combat. This experimentation never ends. Part of the data that we want is the feedback loop from the performance of equipment, men, and materials in combat that allows us to adjust rapidly in stride. So I see no end to this.
Dan, it's great to have you on the program. Thanks for your insight today. I appreciate
you.
it. You can read more about computing and communicating at the edge on today's show page at fedgovtoday.com.